Yo, what's cracking YouTube? It's Faye or Chase Cloud here. It's been a while. I haven't had a chance to play Yu-Gi-Oh since like July or so because I just started law school and it's been super busy and finals are coming up. It's miserable. But decided to make some time this past weekend to play two regionals, the Grandmaster and the Arkham Regional. Scrubbed out of day one Grandmaster. Just I was playing like a really weird list with Winter Cherries and stuff. Really mediocre card and decided to change up the deck list a lot by Sunday. And this list of Eldlich performed a lot better, now featuring less Dogmatica engines, only one hand trap. And I think the list has changed a lot, and I think it's a little different than a lot of what Eldlich players are doing right now. I feel like every Eldlich player is just out here copying each other, and it's pretty annoying because some of these builds are really mediocre in my opinion. But I think this one performed pretty well. I will say as a caveat before I get into it that the reason I'm not playing Heavenly Prison is that I just did not get them in time. I think the card is probably pretty good, but I need to test it for sure. Yeah, so getting into it, we played two Lord and only one Pank for the monsters. I didn't think that any other monsters were needed in this build of Eldlich. Pank performed pretty well. The logic was just having a going second chainable card does like pretty well about getting rid of Blackout against the Sword Soul deck. If they've already used Celestial Effect to banish Dasher and someone has a DPE on board, you can attack into DPE, force the pop, chain Pank to pop a back row, and then they end up blowing up another one of their back row or another monster against like EK or Striker or whatever. Overall, Pank performed quite well. I definitely liked having him in the main, especially since for whatever reason, out of the 11 or so rounds I played over the course of 2 days, I lost 9 die rolls. So having a going second card in the main definitely did a lot of work for me when I was always going second. Moving on to these spells, we only played draw power in this deck. 3 extravagance, 2 duality. I tested Prosperity. I wasn't a huge fan just because when you run Prosperity alongside Extravagance, you run into some issues with just running through your extra deck too quickly. I feel that the list I'm playing is very slow and controlled, and the special summoning restriction off of Pot of Duality didn't really come up very often. So overall, I would say it performed quite well. And let's go ahead and move on to trap cards. The bread and butter of this deck, we're playing a 3-3-2 ratio of the Eldlich traps, 3 Sanguine, 3 Conch, and 2 Hawkero. Overall, I wouldn't change these ratios. I don't like Cursed Eldland. It has the same problems now as it did 2 formats ago when I last played, which is basically that going first, Eldland feels really bad because you have to either just pull a golden land trap, which isn't terrific on its own if you don't have Scarlet Sanguine, or you pop your own Eldland with the Eldlich you search and end up negging super hard so you can get a Sanguine, and then you have to hope you have a golden land trap in the hand. Overall, I don't think Eldland is very needed. I think that Duality plus Extravagance provided enough draw power, and when I have a chance to test the Sky Prison, I'm hoping that adds an additional layer of consistency so that I miss it even less. Overall, I've tested Outland. I've tested it at 3, 2, and 1. It always felt worse than just having another powerful trap card. Moving on to more generic traps, we played the 3 Torrential as per usual. Card's fantastic. Wouldn't cut it standard. 3D Barrier. I was originally citing this card. My friend PBS convinced me to play it in the main. Overall, it performed super well. There is basically no deck right now that can put up a full powered board without Synchro, Ritual, or Xyz summoning, or Fusion summoning in the case of any DPE variant or invoked variant. Overall, D-Barrier in the main did great. I felt that it very much replaced Broken Line in the deck because nowadays every competent player knows to play around their columns because you never know which trap could be Broken Line, especially when there are, let's say, 4 set back row. People just play in the empty column. So having D barrier gave me a way to deal with synchros in the case of Sword Soul, fusions, rituals, etc. Um, and I like the fact that it was chainable. So when I got evenly matched and didn't have the judgment, I could just D barrier call usually synchro because all weekend I was seeing Sword Soul. Uh, Imperm, the only hand trap I played. Originally, I wasn't super high on Imperm in trap decks because I felt like a deck like Eldlich had a hard time capitalizing on a singular hand trap, but my friend Blake convinced me to play it. I think it did really well. It stops people from going into 1+1 equals Verte Anaconda pass. And against Sword Soul specifically, if they normal summon Moye activate effect and you imperm, half the time it feels like their turn just ends there. So overall, the card did very well. Definitely will be keeping it in the main. 3 Solemn Strike, terrific card as per usual. Really good at breaking boards alongside Torrential. Ends Chains. The only time I didn't like it was in testing when I ran it alongside Solemn Judgment, which is no longer in the main deck here. I know a lot of lists are running both right now. The problem for me is if I draw 3 or 4 Solemns over the course of the game between the 2 cards, I get into really dicey territory with the life points, and I actually ended up losing a game day 1 when I was running both because I put myself down to like 2,400 life, and then all he had to do was summon 2 monsters and attack through me. Uh, let's see, I'm playing 2 of Punishment, 2 of Compulse, and 2 of IDP. For these like single spot removal cards, I decided 2 ofs worked better in my testing because right now I very much value non-destruction removal in the form of Compulse and IDP. They both work quite well against DPE specifically, and obviously IDP is the go-to for traps to deal with cards like Dragoon. It also came up against the Bird deck because they summoned Utopic Draco Future and ended up detaching the warrior that you used to summon it, and IDP actually came up in that situation, and I had no other way to get rid of the card, so it was fantastic. The reason I chose to go 2 of each is just because Punishment and IDP are cards that can only activate once per turn, and I wanted to draw lineups of traps in such a way where I had hopefully 5 live cards every turn. So overall, I think this ratio made sense for me. Definitely would consider switching it up, but I'm not super inclined at the moment. Then we move on to Floodgates. There can be only one. Performed incredibly all weekend, good against basically every deck. And it does conflict with my own engine, but with the game pace being slowed down so much, I could get rid of it on my own terms with Eldlich Effect. I never felt locked into the board because of Tikaboo, and I would definitely continue playing it at 3. We played 2 Gozen match. Again, fantastic card. It came up basically every time I saw it. It was super live. Very few decks can currently play against or through Gozen match. If they didn't have reboot, cyclone, some removal, they often ended up having to just end their turns. And most times this is even better than Tikaboo in my experience, just because I can summon Eldlich traps under it. Skill Drain also performed well when I drew it. Having it as a 1 of is a real shame. OCG has 3 of, and Eldlich is topping left and right, and I feel like we have a pretty decent Eldlich format this ban list, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as it seems to be in the OCG. Finally, Imperial Order. Unlike every ban list prior, I feel like Imperial Order is actually quite mediocre right now. I kept it just because it's such a powerful card that it felt bad to cut it, but after this weekend, I would definitely consider removing it and moving it to my side deck. So, going on to the extra, we played Imduck and Link Spider just to get rid of the Eldlich trap cards, get them in grave. They were good. I would definitely consider bumping it up to a third or a second copy of either or, just because there were some situations where I banished both off of Extravagance, which always felt bad, and it felt like it slowed down my pace. We played the One Nightmare Phoenix. Feels like I have to have it. I have the flexibility in the extra deck to put whatever in basically. It never came up. I would probably keep it just for those fringe cases where it might. On to punishment targets, 3 Entis, the best one. I really, really like this card and would definitely only cut it if I was to cut punishment. Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. It's Entis but slow and bad. I will almost definitely be cutting this in favor of just maybe more Xyz options. Wind Pegasus Adignister. This one came up a couple times. I was a fan of it. It definitely did better than the Fossil Warrior. I think Entis and Wind Pegasus are basically the only punishment targets that I like right now. And then on to the Xyz, we have Pleiades. It didn't come up, but I have the flexibility to keep it around just in case it might. Gustav. This was great. The burn actually came up a couple times. I got into Zeus once using Gustav and Lieb, and that helped me keep tempo against Sword Soul player. We ran the one Lieb just to climb into, and Zeus didn't come up super often, but like I said, it came up the one time, and it actually made a big difference in the game. I'd probably keep it just because I don't really have other specific cards I'm looking to keep in here. And then finally, we keep the Cyber Dragon Nova and the Mechaba for when the opponent uses Maximus. This never came up. I happened not to see Maximus day 2. I only saw it day 1 in the first regional I played, and that was before I had this extra deck list. Moving on to the sideboard. I played 3 border in the side. I don't understand why people love maining this card. Maybe it's just like I said, because I lost die roll 9 of 11 times or whatever, that I feel like I'm always going second. I hate border going second. It just feels slow and it feels bad. And it feels like once everyone's got their board set up already, they have no trouble getting rid of it. 3 Lava Golem. This was fantastic when I knew I was going second. It really helped break the Sword Soul board specifically, which is always very annoying. 3 evenly matched. Card was pretty mediocre. I don't know what else I would keep instead. I didn't see any trap decks, so that was probably a really big contributor to why it felt so bad. 3 Solemn Judgment. Like always, fantastic card. I usually side out the strikes when I put Judgment in, unless I feel like I really need both against whatever matchup. I really just didn't like having all 6 in the main deck at the same time. Finally, 3rd goes in match. I would probably move this to the main in favor of the Imperial Order because it just performs so much better. 3rd IDP. I was expecting to see more Dragoon this weekend, or at least I thought that it was a possibility, so I kept a 3rd IDP in the side just in case I needed it. It came up a couple times, but I didn't see Dragoon all weekend. It was mostly DPU from the Verte. And then the last card is Anti-Spell. Again, this didn't really come up because IO didn't feel that good, Anti-Spell didn't feel that good. I only put it in when I was expecting to get Dustered. I didn't see any Striker all weekend, and I only saw Invoked once or twice. Overall, I liked the side deck. I would definitely consider getting some other options with the Heavenly Prison especially. I think I plan to test it both in main and inside, just to have some more protection, because Blackout was the biggest irritation this whole weekend. But yeah, overall I would say that this weekend went as good as I could have expected it to, considering it's been a few months since I haven't had a chance to play. I was a little rusty, didn't really know the decks that I was playing against super well, but overall the performance wasn't bad, and I hope to have a little more time in the coming weeks to play a little more, and hopefully we can up that performance from a top 8 to a top 4 in the near future, and then hopefully a win sometime. But yeah, I think overall this ban list is good for Eldlich. I think people should be picking up the deck for whatever regionals you're trying to top. If you want to throw me a follow, a subscription, whatever, I will continue to update everyone on my thoughts on Eldlich. I hope to be bringing new stuff to the Eldlich meta rather than just the same list over and over again being recycled by every player ever. So yeah, thanks for the time. Throw me a like, and I'll catch you guys around.